Hi everyone, welcome to REDCap Tips and Tricks. In this video, we're going to look at this calculation error message. So the context in which you would see this in REDCap, I'll pull up my demo project right next to it here. So I come into my record status dashboard, I open a form, and this is the context in which I will get that field popping up. So this pop-up is warning me that I have branching logic or calculation errors on the form. You can see here it's labeled as calculation errors, so I know that I need to go after calculations in these three fields listed here. And it does warn me that until the errors are corrected, any calculations or branching logic on this field or on this form may not function correctly. So when this error pops up, what is it actually telling me? What it's telling me is that REDCap tried to run a calculation that I supplied either as part of a calculated field, as part of a calc text equation, and it's returning invalid. So that will often mean that I've referenced a field that doesn't exist anymore, or that my commas and parentheses are off. So the commas and parentheses, the punctuation, those are essential to parsing code. And having things just a little bit off can change the entire meaning of an equation when the computer tries to run it. So that's usually how you're going to get an invalid. It's usually not going to be any of these things down here. So when you've got a calculation that is just incomplete. So if you're missing a parenthesis off the end of a nested equation, right, that's not going to pop this error up because that's not giving it an invalid value, it's just incomplete. So you'll just see a blank field for that. And also, if you have a calculation that is not what you intended to calculate, unfortunately, REDCap cannot warn you about that. It has no information on our intentions. So this is why it's important to manually check your equations, make sure that they are doing what they should be doing, that they are calculating what you intended to calculate. But if I open up a form to start my testing and I see this error message pop up, cool, this is where my testing and troubleshooting is going to start. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy the list of fields. I'm going to move them over into this little text editor on the side. All right, so we know the list of fields that we need to go after, so we're going to cancel out of that error. We're going to hit the code book. And so one by one, we're going to search these fields in the code book, fix them one at a time. So we're going to search for age first. That is a fragment of many words. All right, so there we go. So here's where my age field lives. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my calculation out of that little box on the page, and I'm going to look at it. So the things in square brackets, those are other fields within the project that I'm trying to reference. So one of my first checks is whether or not those fields actually exist. And I can see that's the problem with this first field. Date of birth, that DOB field shows up in this as part of this calculation, but it doesn't exist anywhere else in the code book. So there are different ways that I could fix that scenario. In this case, I'm going to say that I actually meant to collect the date of birth. I meant to have that DOB field. So I'm going to rebuild it. And this may be a situation where I have to do some back data entry. If you delete a field, you can never be sure that the information is going to still exist. So I might have to backfill in order to get people's dates of birth, but I do in fact want my date of birth field back. So I'm just going to come in here, and then it's important that I use the exact variable name that I've got as a variable in my equation. So I'm going to, make sure that says DOB, and I'm going to make this a date field. So now that DOB field exists. If I go into my record status dashboard, I open one of those records again. So I did get the pop-up again, but when I come down here and I look at the list of fields, the age field isn't on there anymore. I have fixed the age field. So it doesn't look like I fixed things, but I have fixed one thing. Now I have two more things that I need to follow up on and fix. All right, so back to the code book. Now we're going to look at cakes_calctext. So let's search. Yep, it's pulling up the wrong search bubble. There we go. Cakes calc text. So I've got cakes calc text and cakes calc text 2. So right now I'm going to focus on that first one. So this is a calc text equation. So these have a lot of flexibility. And the downside of that flexibility is that I can make some surprising mistakes. So I'm going to start separating this statement out and putting the different chunks of it onto new lines. And what this does is it helps me see what my statements look like, be able to compare them to each other, and find what it was that I did wrong. So in this case, okay, I've got calc text, I've got concat with separator. So let me hop into my designer. So we're going to check as we go how these things are supposed to be formatted. Because again, it's very easy to drop something simple. So we're just going to go check out what that format is supposed to be. I'm into cakes calc text here. So here's my calc text logic, just like it is over on this side. And now I want to check the action tags and special functions to see what my format needs to be and go through with a fine-tooth comb and see where if I've got that format derailing somewhere. So let's look under special functions first, because this is where that concat lives. So concat with separator, that's what this section up here, we're specifying the separator. So we should have in between our quotation marks, whatever we want to put between our words. And I do have that. So that's what this comma space in between the quotation marks is doing. That's my separator. And I've got a comma after that. Cool, that part is good. And then within my concat with separator statements, I'm plugging in either text or blanks, depending on whether something was selected. So for each of these, I've got an if statement saying, okay, if we selected yes for this field guava, then I want to add the word guava to my list. And if we didn't, I want to not put anything there. I want to leave that part blank and move on to evaluate the next if statement. So we've got our separator lined up correctly. So let's go into our different if statements. And with the if statements, there are 3 phases and they all need to be separated by commas. So I need to have my condition, my then, so the thing that I put in if the condition is true, and then my else, the thing that shows up if the condition is false. So I've got commas between all of those on that line. I've got a comma separating that from the next if statement, so that's good. Mocha equals 1, comma, mocha in quotation marks, comma, empty quotation marks to say, if we didn't check mocha, don't put anything. If passion fruit equals 1, okay, that's my condition. And I've got passion fruit, and here's my mistake. What I've done here is I've dropped a comma. So right now, there's no comma between my if and between my then and my else. And so that's causing REDCap to have trouble parsing this out, right? It needs that comma in order to understand. So we're going to put in that comma that we lost. I'm in here, right after passion fruit, outside the quotation marks, I put in my comma. So let's update and close editor, and then we'll go to the record and see how we did. All right, so cakes underscore calc text is off my list now. Now I just have cakes calc text 2 throwing me that error. Again, I put each of my if statements on a new line, and now I need to think about how my statements are formatted and figure out where I've gone wrong in here. So again, I'm going to go back to the designer, partly because I'll have to fix this in there, and partly because this is where I have cheat sheets of how to build these different statements, whether it's the action tags or the special functions. So let's pop in here. All righty. So again, when we look at our concat statement and our special functions, right, I've got my separator, that's living there correctly. It's enclosed in quotes. There's a comma afterwards. And then the way that it's listing text, comma, text, comma, text, comma, my if statements are functioning as that text that's listed there, as those pieces of text. So in between each of them, I need to have a comma. So I need my if statement to be enclosed in parentheses, and I need a comma right after it. You can see right here in this first line, I mixed something up. I put my comma before my parenthesis, and that's derailing REDCap from being able to read that. So I delete the comma out from inside the parentheses, and I put it back here outside the parentheses. Okay, and I've got my comma back where it's supposed to be. Okay, so I've done that. So let's update and close the editor. Let's save it. And then let's go back to our record status dashboard and see. And that error is in fact gone. So we have now resolved this error message, and we can go back to testing that our form actually does what we intended it to do. And that's it for the troubleshooting the calculation error message. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great day.